Hey everyone, Liam here once again back with another video of TRI weather. Here's your top weather news and headlines. Severe weather that can consist of large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes is expected across the plains in Midwest tonight as we approach the heart of the severe weather season. I'll forecast the timing, location, and amounts on the severe weather for today, tonight, and for the coming days ahead. And I'll also have this weekend's temperature forecast along with the 6 to 14 day Climate Prediction Center temperature outlook. All this and more is coming up right here on TRI Weather. Alright, today's date is Friday, April 29, 2022. Besides some storms that rolled through the Midwest last week, it's been rather quiet since my last video. Though we are in the middle now of severe weather season, things are bound not to stay too quiet for long, as we do have some severe thunderstorms that are currently forming right now across the plains and Midwest. I'll get to all of that in just a little bit, but before that, here's a look at the current National Weather Service hazards map across the United States. And besides some red flag warnings across the Northeast, all of the action is across the central United States. Still red flag warnings out shaded in dark pink across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico. A little further north, we got some wind advisories, watches, and also warnings. Some flood watches shaded in dark green for northern Minnesota and North Dakota. You guys up there shouldn't really see any severe weather this weekend, though you could see some pretty heavy rainfall. I'll have that later on in the video. And also a small area across Nebraska and Kansas shaded in yellow, currently under a tornado watch until 9 p.m. Central Time tonight. And that actually does extend a bit further, about 3 to 4 counties to the west, but the wind warnings are just currently overlapping it. I'm expecting a lot more tornado watches and warnings to spread further east and southward throughout the night tonight. But before we dive into the severe weather threat, here's the nation's 3-day temperature forecast, starting off with today's high temperature. Definitely feels like spring out there. Besides some isolated spots across the Rocky Mountains, everyone is at least getting up above 40 degrees, with some hot spots across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas reaching the mid-90s. That will aid in the severe weather threat later on tonight. Now for tonight's low temperature, some areas will be in the low 60s and 50s, with some areas across the far northeast and mountainous regions in the western United States getting down into the 30s, but most areas staying above freezing, something that you would hope and expect for late April. Now for Saturday's high temperature, a little bit warmer across the far eastern half of the country than it was on Friday, but with those storms that could roll through tonight and early tomorrow morning, places like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas aren't in the mid-90s anymore. That'll be some short-term relief. For Saturday night, roughly the same as Friday night, though slightly less cool across most regions by just a little bit. Now to Sunday, besides a little warmer into the far northeast, roughly the same as Saturday's high temperature, and that could also be said the same for Sunday night's low temperature. Now over to a quick look at the Climate Prediction Center's temperature outlook, first with the 6 to 10 day outlook. Much of the Midwest and Northeast is expected to be a little below average. Same goes for the far Northwest. And above average temperatures expected all across the South, and also some areas across the far North, though confidence isn't so high up there. Now the 8 to 14 day outlook looks actually relatively the same, except the larger area across the western United States could see some below average temperatures as multiple disturbances plan to roll through over the next week or so. But again, roughly the same outlook as the 6 to 10 day outlook, with some below average temperatures expected across the Ohio Valley in northeastern United States, and above average temperatures expected for portions of the Deep South. Alright, now let's time out and forecast a severe weather threat for tonight and this weekend. We'll start off with the Future Radar plus satellite for 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Have some isolated showers across Florida, Alabama, and Oklahoma, but you can see across the northern plains there, that's a system we need to watch. It's going to tap into some pretty favorable conditions for storms to develop as it works its way eastward throughout the night tonight. I think around 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time is when things should start getting really active, with Cape values of 3 to 4,000 and maybe even higher than that, and some substantial wind shear and wind speed aloft. It's going to be a pretty active night. Now by 1 a.m. Eastern Time, we have a cluster of severe thunderstorms that isn't incredibly organized, and that actually might help in producing more tornadoes, as typically when these cells remain separate, they can become supercells much easier than they could within an organized line of thunderstorms. Through around 3 to 4 a.m. Eastern Time, these storms may start to finally get organized, but still bringing the potential for tornadoes, with the main threat being strong straight line winds at this stage. Before we look at Sunday's outlook, here's the Storm Prediction Center's categorical outlook for the rest of today. A moderate level 4 out of 5 risk has been issued for a small region across southeastern Nebraska and northeastern Kansas. A quick summary from the Storm Prediction Center. There is a moderate risk for severe thunderstorms this afternoon and evening over portions of southeast Nebraska and northeastern Kansas. The summary is a complex and significant severe weather episode is forecasted this afternoon into tonight across the central Great Plains vicinity. 3.9 to 4.9 million people are individually under the threat for either a marginal, slight, or enhanced risk for severe weather, with around 800,000 people under that risk area shaded in red. Now over to the Torcons for tonight. Most areas are under a Torcon of 3 or 4, but under the yellow and red shaded areas are Torcon values of 5 and 6. Major cities under Torcons include Wichita Falls under a 3, Oklahoma City under a 4, Wichita, Kansas under a 5, and Topeka under a 6. Alright, now back over to the future radar for 8 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday. That one strong line of severe storms has nearly dissipated completely, with just some light to moderate rainfall along the edges of that line. Into the afternoon hours, that line continues to weaken, with the bulk of the non-severe rainfall located across the Midwest and Northern Plains, and yeah, maybe even some snow mixing in at times on the western side of that storm system into the Dakotas. But into the evening and nighttime hours, that line could gain some strength and momentum. There's actually quite a bit of available energy across the southeast, lower Midwest, and Ohio Valley, but the system is lacking some moisture, so a severe thunderstorm and an isolated tornado is possible along this cold front. The severe threat is substantially lower on Saturday than it is tonight. The Storm Prediction Center Categorical Day 2 outlook has a very large area of over 23 million people under a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms and 17 million people under a slight risk, but thankfully nothing higher than that. A quick summary for Saturday by the Storm Prediction Center. There is a slight risk of severe thunderstorms for parts of the middle Mississippi Valley into the lower Ohio Valley. Summary is severe thunderstorms associated with a threat for wind damage and isolated large hail is possible on Saturday from the mid-Mississippi Valley northward into the western Great Lakes. A couple of tornadoes may also occur from eastern Illinois into southern Wisconsin. I'll be keeping an eye on a few more disturbances that should be coming this way come early to mid-week during next week. The Storm Prediction Center has highlighted an area for severe storm potential across Oklahoma and Texas on Monday, and also all the way out on day 6 on Wednesday. They typically don't forecast anything this far out unless they are pretty confident in a large-scale severe weather outbreak, so I'll be monitoring these upcoming systems very closely. Now before we end out this video, last but not least, the forecasted rainfall amounts from the NAM model from now until Sunday. The bulk of the rainfall will remain across the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Minnesota with 2 inches with isolated amounts of 3 inches also. But everywhere else should see up to about an inch, maybe an inch and a half of rainfall, but most of the flooding potential will remain across Nebraska, the Dakotas, and northern Minnesota. Well, that concludes this video of TRA weather. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel TRA Weather for all the latest weather news and information, and also check out the links listed in the description below to my social medias. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.